All right, here we are. Let's go. Welcome, everybody. We are venturing into the journey to ourselves. And this is done through Rabbi Nachman's story of the lost princess. Just 1 second. We were having trouble streaming your destination. Okay. Let me just see 1 second. And I don't know if it's going. Okay, we're still going. All right, great. Here we go. Okay.
It still says upcoming.
Am I still there? Can you see me?
Well,
Can you see me and hear
yes.
me? Okay, as long as you can see me and hear me, let's not worry about it. Okay, we're continuing in on our story of Rabbi Nachman's The Lost Princess. As we know that in terms of it's a global story also that has to do with humanity, the Jewish people, and it's also a specific story that is dealing with ourselves as well. As we know in the story, just to recap, because it's been a while since we've been here, is of course the king had 6 sons, 1 daughter, and the king was love his daughter, strolling with her, said, "May the no good take you away." She's been missing. She became missing. And of course, the viceroy saw how distraught the king was, so he set out to go and find her, searched all over. And the first part of the story is he found her off the side of the road, this dark castle. She was there. He met with her, and he says, "How do I get you out of here?" He says, she says, "Okay, you got to find a place somewhere, go there for a year. Anytime that you're free, you yearn to get me out. And then on the day, a year later, you can come and get me out. But the first time it was, you can't sleep, you can't eat." And of course, what happens is he's on his way to go get her. He sees an apple, so it's an orchard tree. He takes a bite of it. He ate and he fell asleep. He blew it. That's the first time he blew it. And then he is goes to her, says, "Oh, I blew it. I fell asleep. I ate." He says, yeah, what a pity, man. What a bummer. So you have to do it again, another year, go away, work, yearn to get me out. And on the day that you get me out, a year later, a year from now, is you just can't sleep. You can eat, but you can't sleep. And then the second time, of course, on his way back to rescue the lost princess, he sees this river of wine and he takes a drink and he falls asleep for 70 years. Nebuch. So he sleeps a long time. And of course, she also, many troops are passing by while he's sleeping in the forest. And she even is passing by. The lost princess comes down, sees him sleeping there, weeps, laments. She writes on a kerchief that she has in her tears and leaves that next to him. And then she gets back in the wagon and takes off. He finally wakes up after 70 years. His servant was there and he says, "Dude, you slept 70 years, right? I was afraid I had to hide in the trees because all these soldiers were going by, a lot of traffic. And what is this? What is this? Who are you? Who knows why they probably quit it with him. Who knows?" In any case, he gets up and he's told by his servant that this lady came down, she saw you, and she wrote on this little thing, napkin, this kerchief next to you. So he took it and he held it up in the sun. And she says, "Wow, what a pity. You could have gotten me out, So now she says, "I am no longer in the dark castle. You have to come and search for me in a different place. I'm no longer in the castle." And she says to him, she writes it in this kerchief, "Now you have to search for a golden mountain and a pearl castle." So here's where the story shifts. So first, she was known to be in the place of darkness, the place of evil. And now she is no longer in that place anymore, but she's in a different place. And he has to now, a new quest, a new kind of mission, go and search for her in the golden mountain and a pearl castle. Now, what is that? We're going to get to it. Interesting thing, though, we have to understand, of course, all of this has such deep metaphor. Like I said, Rabbi Weinberger, he gave this, this is like over a year he gave this classes. So, each little thing you could, we're not going to go into every single little thing, but we also have to understand this idea for ourselves in terms of what our goal is, because the bottom line is we are the viceroy. We're here. If you want to look at it in a different way, our mission here is to search for the lost princess. And we had a whole idea, many different topics, of many different ideas and commentaries of what is the lost princess, who is the lost princess. And it could be the Torah, it's our soul, our neshama, right? It's our connection, it's emunah, our connection to God. It could be the connection of all the entire Jewish people, the lost princess. There's an interesting metaphor that Rabbi Nachman brings. He calls it, it's called the metaphor of the Hungarian wine. He calls it Hungarian wine. And some people, Rabbi Weinberger, he actually put it into another kind of metaphor of a melody, a certain song. That imagine a person racked with troubles, all kinds of stuff. And one time, he hears this certain melody, and this is an amazing song. It's such an amazing song. It captivates him to such a place where all of his problems are gone. And he can, and he just has such an unbelievable high from this melody. It's incredible. And of course, the melody ends, and he wants to search for that melody. And so he goes everywhere, high and low, looking in every single town. He's trying to he gets musicians, he hires musicians to try to find that melody again. And he gets musicians, he says, they're going something like this, like this, like this. And he gets musicians, and he puts advertisements all over. Whoever can play this melody, I'm going to give him $1 million. And musicians come, and they think that they play the melody, and he listens to their melody, and he goes, it's a very nice melody, but it's not it. And so the metaphor is also with the Hungarian wine. That one guy he tasted some Hungarian wine, and it was the most unbelievable experience. And he's looking all over for this Hungarian wine, and people say, he's in some restaurant or someplace, and they go here, and he hears a table next to him, and they're going, I got Hungarian wine, and he goes, really, let me taste some of it. He takes it, and he goes, he says, that is not Hungarian wine. I know what Hungarian wine is. And it's an interesting kind of idea, because a lot of us, we're searching for that melody. We're searching for that Hungarian wine our whole lives. We want to retouch on it. And a lot of times people will go to various places and search for this Hungarian wine, or in search of this melody that will lift them up out of all of their problems and give them this euphoric feeling. And so they're trying. A lot of times we try this, we go for this, we think here, we think there, we go there, and we think, and we're searching all high and low. And bottom line, our neshama, our soul, it knows what that melody is. It knows what that Hungarian wine is. So no matter what anybody's offering us, no matter what we're confronted with and presented to, we spit it out, and it's not it. I can't put my finger on it, but I know that is not it. A lot of times we can say, that's not it, that's not it, that's not it. But we're still looking for the lost princess. We're still looking for that Hungarian wine. We're still looking for that melody, that certain soul tune, that certain place of consciousness. And so now the story has shifted and the handkerchief was an interesting idea. The fact that he has this handkerchief and he looks it up to the sun, because she wrote it in tears. One of the things that I learned at an early age is you could write a note with lemon juice, and then you put it over like a flame, and then the letters come out, kind of like that. And so the same thing is the lost princess wrote on her kerchief in tears. Now, it's a huge idea there that they want to say that the Torah was written very much like that, not necessarily in tears. Actually, the last 5 verses in the Torah, they say that, the Baal Shem Tov gives a great explanation. Moshe wrote it in tears, just to give you that kind of idea that the way or the awakening or the new mission, the more directed, focused mission, is in the Torah. It's interesting how we're coming up to Shavuos, and it's like, is that seems like really that's the shift in humanity of where things are going. He kind of alludes that, not so much in a little bit way in the commentary on the bottom. We're going to start at page 46. So if you go to page 46 in the story, and it kind of alludes to the exiles, like there's basically 2 exiles that, like, of course, because the story is like, first it starts with she's in the dark castle, the place of evil, and now she's no longer there. And what's this shift? So, he wants to say that the shift, it started off with humanity in general, had the idea of fixing the sin of Adam in the Garden of Eden. And then, of course, it moved over to Abraham and his descendants. That could be the shift here. Like I say, every time we go into the story, it takes on different meaning. And then you also have to ask yourself, where am I in this story? As when the viceroy wakes up every time, he says, where am I in the world? Which is a really amazing idea, that if you really would ponder and take note, we call it cheshbon nefesh, account, soul accounting. Where am I in the world? In any case, the idea here is the fact that it was Noach, right? After Noach's sin, only the descendants of Shem and then Abraham and Israel could free her. So we're looking at the Shekhinah, the divine presence. We're on a mission to free the divine presence. So he says this is reflected too. I'm reading in the note in the end of 46, the bottom. This is reflected in the 2 exiles. After the exile from Egypt, the divine presence could still be found through prophecy, but after the Babylonian exile, prophecy ceased to exist. So there it's very much linked to a level of prophecy or a level of connection. Prophets would be amazing if you could have one. What should I marry this person? Should I go into this business? Where should I live? Where am I going to be successful? Where am I going to find my tikkun, my rectification? What's my goal here? What am I supposed to be doing? How can I be expressing the Ein Sof through my life in a greater way? And the prophet would say, sure, you have to sell hot water bottles at the central bus station in Jerusalem. That's it. That's your job. That's right. Hot water bottles. Before people get on a bus, sell hot water bottles to people, and then they bring them back or they buy the whole bottle, whatever. That was a business endeavor that my father-in-law was jokingly exclaiming. That's a whole nother topic. But in any case, that was when we had prophecy. And now we no longer have prophecy. So then it's an interesting idea there. And we're going to get into it. I'm not going to read the note here about the Golden Mountain and the Pearl Castle until we finish the story. So we're going to run through the story now, just to get the gist of it, the second part of the story, and see what happens. And then we're going to try, hopefully, God willing, try to expound on the Golden Mountain and the Pearl Castle, which is where we need to seek. And it's really amazing. So now we're going to be on page 48. I think it's 48. Yes. So 48. The viceroy left his servant behind, and he went alone to find her. He traveled for many years. He concluded that he certainly would not find a Golden Mountain and a Pearl Castle in any civilized area, right? Since he was also an expert in geography. Therefore, he said, I'm going to go to the deserts. Interesting. Now, the deserts, as we know, the Torah was given in a desert. The Torah could not be given in a civilized area. It had to be in a desert. Do you know why? You ever think about that? I think the idea is you know, very common. Everybody knows that. Why the desert? Why was the Torah given in the desert? Is because a person has to make himself like a desert. He has to completely empty all of his previous notions, all of his ideas, in order to accept the Torah, right? The divine code of life and the direction of where we have to go and what we have to do. So the viceroy left his servant behind and went alone to find her. He traveled for many years. He concluded, okay, she's not going to be in any civilized area. I'm going to the deserts. So he searched for her for many years in the deserts. I wonder how old this guy is. Don't go there. Okay. Finally, he met a huge man. He was such a huge giant that he could not be considered human. He was carrying an immense tree. In civilized areas, such a large tree could never be found. So here's this giant carrying this huge tree. He sees the viceroy in the desert and he goes, "Who are you?" Right? Or maybe it's a giant. "Who are you? Who are you?" Right? Why British accent? That's how we go. Who are you? So the viceroy says, "I'm a human being. Or I've been in the desert for many years now. Or never saw a human being before. Or you little puny one." The viceroy told him the entire story. And he said that he was looking for a golden mountain and a pearl castle. The giant said that he was certain that no such thing existed. He discouraged the viceroy and told him that he had been convinced of foolish tales. Go home. Certainly no such place existed. So here's the first barrier. The first, we call it a machzam, a monea, something that is an obstacle. Here's this guy who's been in the desert for many years, traveled all over, knows all the deserts, high and low. And he says, no such place exists, man. I'm sorry. The viceroy began to weep very bitterly. Interesting. Why? Why weep? Why not, other emotions? But he wept. He was certain that it must exist someplace, even though this giant was discouraging him and saying that people had obviously told him foolish tales. The viceroy insisted it certainly does exist. That's an interesting idea that you're going to see, that the viceroy, even though he's discouraged by not only one, but you're going to see two other giants are going to discourage him totally. He still holds fast to the belief that it does exist. So the giant said to him, "In my opinion, it's mere foolishness, but since you're so stubborn, I will do something for you. I'm in charge of all the animals. I'll summon them all together. The animals run all over the world. Perhaps one of them knows something about this mountain and castle." So obviously, what does he do? I don't know how. He summons all the animals, blows a shofar, blows a toot, maybe a flute, maybe one of them dog whistles. Any case, he summons all of the animals, and here they all come, and they're all singing a song. La, 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 la. Okay, so in any case, they're all coming, large and small, the elephants, the rhinos, the lions, the squirrels. And he gets them all together. And he asks them, "Anybody here seen a golden mountain and a pearl castle?" Right? So they all replied, "No. None. We never saw any golden mountain and pearl castle." So then he turns to the viceroy and he says, "You see, people have told you foolish tales. Listen to me. Go home. It is certain that you will not find it. It simply does not exist." So the viceroy continued to press him and says, "But it must exist, definitely." If you don't get a sense of a feeling of do you believe that there's going to be an answer to all of our problems and all of our questions? Every single question, do you believe that God will be able to present you with an answer at the end of your life? Or are you just going to say, nah, I got serious claims, tainas, whatever? Or do you believe that really there will be a point where you're going to see everything in your consciousness and you'll go, oh, everything that happened in your life, oh, makes total sense. So in any case, he says it must exist, definitely. It must exist. So the giant said, my brother also lives here in the desert. He's in charge of all the birds. Maybe they know something. Since they fly high in the air, it's possible that they've seen such a mountain and a castle. Go to him, my brother, and tell him that I sent you. So the viceroy traveled for many years, searching for him until he finally found him. He encountered another huge giant, just like the first one. And he was also carrying an immense tree. What are these trees? Who's this giant? We'll see. We're going to go back over it. So he's also carrying this huge, immense tree, and the giant asked him the same questions as his brother had. Oh, yeah. Right? The viceroy replied, telling him the entire story and how his brother had sent him here. The second giant also discouraged him, saying, this is obviously something that it doesn't exist. But the viceroy pressed his convictions to him too. So the giant said to him, I'm in charge of all the birds. I'll summon them. Perhaps they know. So he called all the birds, large and small, and asked every one of them. They all replied that no. All of them twerped or tweeted or whatever it is, like tweeted or X. They all said no, they didn't know of any such golden mountain or any pearl castle. So the giant then said to him, don't you see that it certainly does not exist? Anyone, look, the birds fly everywhere. They see everything. Go home. This place doesn't exist. But the viceroy pressed him again. And he said, but it certainly does exist somewhere in the world. The giant said to him, further on in the desert, you'll find my other brother. He's in charge of all the winds. They fly all over the world. Perhaps they know. So the viceroy traveled for many years searching, and finally he found another giant, just like the first one. This giant was also carrying a huge tree. He asked him similar questions, and the viceroy told him the entire story. The giant tried to discourage him, but the viceroy pressed his case on him also. The giant told him that he would assemble all the winds for his sake and would ask them. He summoned them, and all of the winds came. And he asked all the winds that gathered, but not one of them knew anything about the golden mountain or the pearl castle. So the giant says to him, don't you see that people have told you foolish tales, earthling, human? The viceroy began to weep bitterly. I know for certain that it does exist, he said. Just then he saw another wind come. The giant was angry at it. Why did it take you so long to come? He demanded. I decreed that all the winds come. Why didn't you come with them? So the wind replied, I was detained. Because why? I had to carry a royal princess to a golden mountain and a pearl castle. Boom! The viceroy was very happy. Okay. By the way, I haven't used this before, but I'm waiting for the magical moment where if I'm ever late to someplace, a meeting or anything, and they're waiting, and you want to give an excuse why you were late, you can always use this excuse. I had to carry a royal princess to a golden mountain and a pearl castle. Let's see if anybody there knows what you're talking about. Most likely not, but then again, you never know. Many people are familiar with the story. Sorry I'm late. I had to carry a royal princess to a golden mountain and a pearl castle. And I'm like, ah. Anyways, you can always use that. Okay. You have my permission. If you do, please let me know if you did. I did it. And everybody was clueless. Or you can say, I did it. And one guy got excited and one guy laughed. So he knew the story, right? You could fish out who knows the story. In any case, We have it. Thank God. Whoa. The wind comes back late because I had to carry a royal princess to a golden mountain and a pearl castle. Booyah, we got it. So the giant then asked the wind, what things are valuable there? Because listen, it's a golden mountain and a pearl castle. As we're going to see when we go back into the notes, well, what could possibly be valuable there is gold is like on the street, so you could just chisel it out of the mountain. And then, Pearl Castle, it must be it's almost like the parable of the dark mountains. So here he said, and we have to contemplate this, everything is valuable there, replied the wind. The one in charge of the winds, so everything is valuable. Whoa. Now, I thought of when I first looked at this, going like everything is valuable, and I remembered that my father-in-law, Zichron Livracha, Zechuso Yagein Aleinu, he was amazing how he said that it was one time, I don't know about now, but the biggest export of America was movies, the Hollywood, the industry, and he says, look at that. The Jews, they couldn't get jobs in New York because they had restrictions about what trade that they can have. Seriously. And they ended up going to California. I don't know, it was the 1800s, maybe early 1900s. I'm not sure what years, but it was definitely in the formation of Hollywood and the movie industry. And they got into the movie industry. And they took air, because that's what it is, and made it into gold. Because really, if you think about it, movies and all these stories that people, it's air, because they really, maybe documentaries is different, but the whole entertainment industry with all of its stories and now with its special effects and everything, Star Wars, whatever have you, it's air. Is it not air? It's air. Okay. Because does it exist? No, they made it up. So he said amazingly, he says they took air and made it into something valuable. So it was an idea that I thought, but I'm not sure that's the idea here. Could be. Like I say, every time you read or think about this story, things change about it or different ideas come. Because don't forget, this story is the story of our lives. So the wind said everything is valuable there. I don't know how the wind knew. It spent some time there, or it's passing through. The one in charge of the winds, the giant, said to the viceroy, you've been seeking the princess for such a long time, and you've expended so much effort. You may have difficulty because of a lack of money. I am therefore giving you a purse. Whenever you put your hand into it, you will find money there. Whoa, wouldn't we love such a purse? Oh, yeah. Give me some of that purse, okay? Whenever you put your hand to it, you'll find money there. The giant then issued an order that this wind carry the viceroy there. The storm wind, now we have a little bit of an extra idea here about this wind. And it's a very interesting idea that Rabbi Nachman puts the storm wind there. The storm wind came and carried him to that place, bringing him right to the gate. There were soldiers there who would not let him in. They wouldn't let him enter the city. But he put his hand into the purse and took some money. He was then able to bribe them and enter the city. The city was very beautiful. He went to a wealthy person and bought food from him. He would have to remain there a while, since he would have to use his intelligence and wisdom to devise a plan to free the princess. The Rebbe did not tell how he freed her, but in the end he freed her. He doesn't end the story. He doesn't end it. There's two stories where he doesn't end the story. This is number one. The other story that he doesn't get to the ending is the story of the seven beggars. So he kind of, he got around. And then, but details. Give me the details. Incredible. So that's the story. He does get her out. The idea here is like, what is being expressed here? So let's go back and let's venture into the Golden Mountain and the Pearl Castle. But before, that was on page 46, I believe. Right? Right. So in page 47 here, we have the notes there that's going to explain what this Golden Mountain and Pearl Castle is. And I'm going to try to put it into what we're supposed to be doing, give us more clarity of direction in terms of us finding the lost princess. Don't forget, every morning, wake up after your Modeh Ani Lefanecha, Melech Chai V'Kayam. You got to go. I'm on a mission. I must find the lost princess. Right? So before, as I told you before in the beginning, when we talked about it, that the story shifted, right? First, she was in this place of evil, and he fell asleep twice, couldn't get her out. And then all of a sudden now she's in the Golden Mountain. I've been trying to deal with why the shift is, because, where is the Shekhinah to be found? So why was there for a phase where she was found in a place of evil, and now she's no longer in that place and she's in a different place? And what was the shift there? So I asked one really very, very big scholar. His name was Rabbi Joey Rosenfeld. He has great podcasts and classes online. And I, because he lives in the city I live in, I saw him after davening and followed him after. I'm like going, what's the deal with that? So he answered. And he says something very deep. And really, it explains a lot of in terms of the Kabbalah and how to go ahead and approach a relationship with God. And he said the beginning part was the time where a person is developing his yearning, his ability to yearn, and what he's yearning for, and the clarity of what exactly is he yearning for. And he builds up that yearning. And a certain place where he reached the place of that, he reached where he yearned, and he fulfilled that yearning. That's when things flip. The flip is when you've engaged in yearning. And that's why it was like, a lot of people go through, well, not everybody, but some people, might just go through the story quickly. But it always stuck out to me in the beginning of the story that the princess told him, anytime that you're free, that you have a free moment, don't go on your iPhone. You wish. But yearn to get me out. And it's a deep idea there that is probably covers that first part of the story. And then after the yearning, and then it goes into a different place, which we'll discuss. And then when we look at the 3-column array of the Sefirot, I'm in California now. I don't have all my gimmicks and my posters. But if you'll notice that classically, the 10 Sefirot is an array of 3 columns, the 10 Sefirot, the 10 illuminations. There's the right column, which is kindness, starts off with kindness, actually wisdom and kindness and netzach. And then there's the left column, which is bina, understanding, gvura, power, and hod, splendor. And then there's the middle path, right, which is basically keter, dat, tiferet, yesod, and malchut. That's the middle. But there's these 2 binary paths, columns, pillars, because that's how we look at it, as a 3 pillars, a 3-column array. And I was when I'm in my learning group. So we bring down a lot of Torah from Rabbi Yitzchak Meyer Morgenstern, who's a huge Kabbalist in Jerusalem, who writes a lot, and he writes about the right column and the left column, and the existence that is within us in terms of our psyche. The right column is always more kindness, and the left column is always more restriction. But the way that it's understood for us is, and terms of this is the right column is when we are engaged in saying the Shema, when we're engaged in perceiving God and we become nullified in the oneness of God. When we realize that God is all there is, and all there is all there is. And there's nothing else other than all there is. And we say the Shema and Echad. And as we say Echad, we just dissolve into a unity, a cosmic unity. Twice a day we do that, of course. We're all experts in practicing that one, right? Just get involved in the all there is of all there is. And all there is all there is. And no one made him. He's always existence. And that is the existence of the all there is that we connect to when we say the Shema. That's a nugget, okay? Because we accept that God is all there is, and every single thing that we experience throughout our day is nothing more than an expression of that infiniteness that's coming through all the people and interactions and situations that we encounter throughout the day. It's all God. It's all God. And then the first reaction should be, okay, this is coming from God, yeah. It's coming from God. He loves me. This is part of the process. And you go, thank you, God, even though you have no idea how you can possibly thank God. I'm telling you, thank God I was able to do it. I got cut on Friday, nasty cut. Thank you, God. Don't know why that happened, because you're a knucklehead and your finger was in the wrong place. Even your own mistakes comes from Hashem. That is a principle, a main principle in emunah, in faith. Something that's got ripped off in the mailroom here at my dad. Something was being sent to me that got ripped off. It was stolen. The package was stolen from the mailroom. Thank you, God. Thank you. Okay. The idea is it's all God. God is all there is. So the right column is that idea, the concept of nullification. You surrender to the experience, knowing it comes from the all-loving Creator. And then you can't have that because you'll just become totally nullified. There's the left column. Now, the left column is the column of yearning. That's where we yearn to have a greater experience of God. So you have to go between the two. There's the unification that God is all there is. And then there's the yearning to get to more of God is all there is. So you have to have both elements, because that left column is very important, because it keeps us creations. Because if you get totally nullified, you cease to be a creation. You go back into the light. And so you have to have that left column, which is I'm a creation and I'm here to yearn. The whole idea is of this yearning. The second day of creation, God separated the waters. He made a firmament. He says, here are the upper waters, so holy and so sublime. And there are the lower waters, you dirt bags, just become an ocean and swim around. And the lower waters went, what? Why are we getting cut off? Let us know. We want to be. So, but the lower waters, which we are all water, the lower waters always yearn to connect to the upper waters. The idea that Hashem builds the ability to yearn for it. So when a person reaches the stage of yearning, and listen, it hits me now. It's like, okay, that's really great, but I don't find myself in the stage of yearning, so much. Am I yearning? Am I yearning? Is it a fake yearning? Is it a real yearning? How much yearning is it? Maybe 5% yearning. How much yearning you got? Can you develop a greater yearning? And how do we develop that greater sense of yearning about us? Well, there's lots to say about that, and there's lots to contemplate about that, because there's this innate ability of a Jew to complain. No, not really. No, what are you talking about? How about a Jew complain? Never saw one. Never saw it. Not once. Yeah, right. All through the desert. What? There's not enough graves in Egypt? You have to bring us out here to kill us, Moses? Right? That was the sarcasm of the Jewish people being led out of Egypt at the Red Sea, And, we can only go back to Egypt right? It was so much better there. There were beaches. I was getting margaritas. I was, whatever. So the idea here is of of complaining. We're not supposed to complain, but if you go to the root of the idea of complaining, not to complain because you have to be grateful, but in the root sense of a complaint is as a discerning of the idea, the concept that things could be better. Things are great, but there could be better. There's room for improvement. Okay? So, the room for improvement, if a person were to see the world, see his own life, and saying, wow, there's so much better I could do, there's so much more I could do, and to contemplate that in terms of looking or trying to grasp a person's personal potential of how much higher can I be in Amuna? How much more influence can I impart into others in terms of not only my own connection to God, but other people's connection to God, and enhance other people to be that light unto the nations that we should be doing. Most people, so sad. Okay. But if you could just be recognize that for a moment, I could be so much higher. I could be so much better. Even though we might slip back, and most likely we will slip back, doesn't matter. To keep the yearning going, to keep the picture in our minds of what our potential could be, that's where the yearning comes from, because that potential is, Hashem had a certain potential for us in mind when he made us, when he created all of us individually. That potential always exists, and there's so much more that we could do. And so that's one way that a person can build his yearning, but of course there's many more. So now the story shifts. Golden Mountain Pearl Castle. Let's talk about it here, okay? So now, as we look at the notes in page 47, although also at the first the viceroy was able to choose any place he desired. Now it's not any place anymore. You have to find the Golden Mountain before you can free her. Can't be any place. The Golden Mountain. We're going to get a series of ideas here, and we're going to try to put them together. This is the key to the entire second part of the story. From the context, the fact that the mountain is made of gold alludes to the fact that ordinary wealth and riches are not worth anything there, which is an interesting idea if you think back and you're triggered maybe in terms of understanding the master of prayer and how people had a lust for wealth. Imagine that there was a place where there was nothing that was worth anything. This is obvious from the last giant's question, which is what's valuable there, that the last giant, the one who's in charge of the winds, asked. Thus, the Shekhinah is hidden in a place of untold wealth. Now, is it spiritual wealth or physical wealth? I would beg to say that it's spiritual wealth, as he says here, as we shall see from the context of our story, and this appears to be the world to come. And this is where it's like, what? Kind of throws me off. Let's finish the note and then we'll discuss it. In the lesson, which is said to be the key to this story, Rabbi Nachman teaches that for deep understanding of the Torah, which is finding the Shekhinah, really, Hashem says, I am hidden. I'm hidden in the Torah. And everybody has to go into the Torah. Maybe that's the place where we find the lost princess. Rabbi Nachman teaches that for deep understanding of the Torah, one needs great wealth. He actually says this, believe it or not. Thus, in order to find the king's daughter, one must first find a golden mountain. In other words, you have to be able to contemplate Torah, and you have to be free of any kind of thought of, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay my bills, right? You have to be completely free in your idea, right, of anything worldly, from going after anything worldly. Beyond that, So that's one idea that he says, and then how do you get that? He goes through the whole thing about how to get that in his Torah in the Likutei Maharan 69. The need for this wealth, the need for this wealth is alluded to in the ark. Here's a another kind of a shift. And now he's going towards a more spiritual path. The need for this wealth is alluded to in the ark, which was covered with gold, paralleling the ark in the temple on earth. There is one in the temple on high. In other words, we have a lower temple, which we'd love a third Beit Mikdash. And all of the Kabbalistic writings talk about there's a temple low, and then there's a temple high corresponding it. Really, every single thing in our total existence has a spiritual counterpart that is connected to the upper sphere and the upper levels of the energy. The root of its existence, of every single thing in creation, comes from those original 10 statements in creation. God said, and let there be light, and let there be a firmament, and let there be grass and trees. Those words, Le'olam Hashem devarcha nitzav b'shamayim, those words are still being said. It's not like Hashem said it and it's gone. It's those words are still giving every single thing in existence its animation. It has a spiritual counterpart. Also, like we have investigated in Plato's parable of the three men in the cave, where they're just looking at shadows on the wall, and really, in reality, they were just shadows of something else real. And every single thing really in our world and our existence is nothing more than a shadow. Our hand is not a real hand. It's a shadow of a real hand. We don't know what the real hand is. We really don't. We're in a world, even though it seems like it's more than a three-dimensional simulation, right? Simulation. Every single thing has its spiritual counterpart. The same thing with the temple in Jerusalem, and the Ark of the Covenant also has. Every single thing in the lower temple has a spiritual counterpart in the upper temple. So that's why he wants to say here that here's a paralleling the ark in the temple on earth. There's one temple on high. Thus, the mountain can allude to the temple on high, which is on the Temple Mount, or maybe corresponding. This would be the source of wealth from the side of holiness. Imagine that. To have wealth where it doesn't get into your brain and cheesify your brain and make it all moldy and stinky. And then as we see that what happens, most people, when they get wealthy, goes to their heads and they start to lose direction. They think everybody's after their money. They start to be suspicious. Relationships fade or break because of it. So how did I get to that? I forgot. Anyways, okay. The idea here is wealth from the side of holiness where it doesn't get to the head. It's really amazing, just to interject a little bit here, that when Yisro gives advice to Moses, you got to delegate, man. You can't just be the only judge in town in the entire nation, 2.5 million people, 3 million. They're all waiting in line, right? I bet the people when they're selling the hot dogs in line probably made some, anyways, potato chips, right? In any case, everybody's waiting in line because they have cases and questions about what the Torah says. And Yisro says, dude, you got to delegate. You have to find leaders. You have to find other people who can go ahead and handle at least the smaller cases. I don't know if he said the smaller cases. He just said delegate. And he gave a description of who is going to be those people. And one of his is the quality of sonei betza, which means sonei betza means they hate gain. In other words, they have a right relationship with their wealth, that it doesn't get to their heads. As a matter of fact, they hate it. They don't like the idea of taking advantage of anybody is the most detestable thing to them ever. The idea of trying to gain more is detestable. They have a lot, but they're not interested in more. They've conquered their lust for wealth. Those should be leaders. Those should be the leaders, not somebody who's taking donations and needs it for their campaigns, and then they're bought and sold, and that the whole thing just becomes sickening. All right. So one reason that it is so difficult to find this is because the ark does not take up any space. That he throws in there, which is kind of bizarro. That we do say that the Ark of the Covenant, it was like 10 amos long, and it was put into a building that was 10 amos wide. And if you measure from the end of the staff, the poles that were carrying it, to the wall, I think it was 20 or something. Maybe it was 20 amos wide. I'm not clear. It's a little early in the morning for me in California. I think it was 20 or 20 long or something like that. And whoever it was, the dimensions were that if you would count from the end of the staves to the wall, it was 10 amos from this side. And if you count from the end of this wall to that wall, it was 10 amos. But then this thing was 10 amos. And then if you count from here to here, you only have 20. Really, you should have 30 amos wide, right? But you only have 20, and yet 10 here and 10 here. This thing isn't taking up any space. So it was obviously, it became multi-dimensional, okay, beyond the idea of space. Okay. It's kind of a little something to put in on the shelf here to hold as a construct as we're trying to work through this Golden Mountain and Pearl Castle. Perhaps the Golden Mountain. Okay, we did that. This may allude. Okay, so now the Ark of the Covenant, the temple. That's one idea. The other idea here is this may allude to the place of souls. Indeed, it is taught that the purification of souls parallels the purification of gold, smeltering. Like what we went with Passover and all of the generation of the hybrids that Adam created with Lil and Naaman, which became the whole same generations in the flood and the Tower of Babel and Sodom, and then finally in Egypt, and finally the Jewish people that left Egypt. Smeltering, drossing, each lifetime is another cleansing. So the place of souls, I didn't know there is a place of souls that we do say, that it brings it down in the Talmud in Gemara Nida, that there is a place of souls. It's called Guf. And it brings down actually when the Guf is empty, meaning there's no more souls there, that's when Mashiach comes. That's why, let's empty that goof. Let's empty that place, and let's, move this program forward. Indeed, it is taught that the purification of souls, we did that. It is also taught that the Shekhinah walks through paradise, the place of the souls of the righteous. In the universe of Bria, right, he walks through in the universe of Bria. This may be related to Aravot. Interesting thing that we learned about in last week's Parsha. Just to throw that out, we don't have much time left. This is such a great Rashi. Reb Leibish, I listened to his recording, and he brings down that about Hukosaite Lechu. If you go in my statutes, you're going to have rain, everybody's going to have birth, you're going to have wealth, it's going to be great, you're going to have abundance, you're going to have blessings, and I'm going to walk with you. And Rashi brings down, I'm going to be strolling with you in Gan Eden, and you won't be astounded or freaked out because I'm there. I'm like, oh, you won't be like, you'll be able to hang out with me. I will be hanging out with you in the Garden of Eden. Rabbi Haber, I heard him say a very, very interesting thing that he brought from Tzadok Cohen, that if a person were able to access the root of his soul, all that he would be able to express his potential and overcome any obstacle very easily. Nothing will get in his way. The idea here is to connect to the root of a person's soul. If you can see the root of your soul, everything becomes clear. Clarity. Maybe that's the lost princess. Clarity. Pretty cool. Okay, let's just finish off here, at least this note here, even though this note goes on quite a while. Okay, so we had first the temple, or the Ark of the Covenant. 2 is the place of souls, the place of your root soul. Originally, the Shekhinah could be freed by keeping the 7 commandments of Noah, but now it requires keeping all 613 commandments of the Torah. It does not take any money to keep the 7 commandments. I guess not. Yeah, not really. If you're going to eat meat, you have to make sure it's just not flesh torn from a living animal. But keeping all 613 does require money. You have to buy tefillin, you have to buy mezuzahs, you have to buy the needs of Shabbos and all that kind of things. So there are many ritual objects that do require some purchase. So it's like a total shift here that has to do with now it requires expenditure to free the lost princess. From the context of the story, the Golden Mountain seems to be the world to come. Once again, he says that. Some say that this is alluded to in the verse, and this is where it's interesting. Its stones are the place of sapphires, and it has gold dust. This comes from Eov, the pasuk in Eov. Its stones are the place of sapphires, and it has gold dust. No bird of prey knows that path. Neither has the falcon's eye seen it. The proud beasts have not trodden on it, nor has the lion passed it by. Hence, right, we see in the story that the birds and the beasts never saw this place. Interesting. According to the Talmud, this is speaking of the wealth of Sodom. That's very strange to bring that. Therefore, this is wealth that has fallen into the domain of evil, and it must be lifted up again. So here you have a totally different shift here. That here it's like the wealth has to be captured. Whoa, no, who can do that? Really, Hashem owns all the money. He runs all the money. However, the verse goes on to say, I'm on page 48 there. The verse goes on to say, but where can wisdom be found? It cannot be gotten for gold. It then says, from where does wisdom come? It is hidden from the eyes of all life, meaning the beasts. And it kept shut out from the birds of the air. So we're talking here not about a physical, it seems to be like I say, his commentary needs a little bit of elucidation. Because here it's talking about a spiritual wealth, wisdom. According to the Zohar, this is speaking of Yesod of Chachma. That's on the array of the 10 Sfirot, and each one of the Sfirot have also 10 included in it. So the Yesod of Chachma, that's an address, if you'll know the map. This is the pleasure Yesod that one has from intuitive knowledge, Chachma. The pleasure that one can have from a flash of insight can be much greater than gold, right? And if anybody had a flash of inspiration, that's cool. There's your golden mountain and pearl castle. This insight may be the golden mountain that the voice will be seeking. We're all seeking the aha, are we not? We all want more of that aha. That's why we run to Kabbalah study. We got to find that aha. Where's the Hungarian wine? That's an aha. Where's that song? I need to hear that song again. That song is the aha moment. We're all looking for that aha. Okay, pretty amazing. Okay, now to end off, where do we go? Okay, so Pearl Castle. Let's just end. Some say that this is the Holy of Holies in the temple. Furthermore, this may relate to Abraham, who had both a daughter and a pearl. This pearl also denotes wisdom. Interestingly enough, the pearl, a pearl is said to be related to dreams. How do you like that? Why is that? This is related to the vowel point cholam, which is tiferet, which is cholam means dream. Kahainu kecholmim. We'll talk about that. Earlier, she was in an ordinary castle, but now she's in a castle of pearl. So that's where we're going to end off here. Not much to go on, but just to recap here a little bit. We know the rest of the story. Actually, that doesn't have an end. Thank you very much, Rabbi Nachman. Okay, just when I thought there'd be an end of the story, no, because you have to finish the story. The idea here is, what is this golden mountain? So I'm not going to give you the total insight until next time, okay? What? Right? So now, you have to think about this, because I'm going to leave it with a question. This golden mountain that he seems to indicate a couple of times, it's a spiritual wealth. It's the world to come. But I don't get it. The world to come is not now. We're in this world. There's this world, and then there's the world to come. And wait a minute, Rabbi. I thought we were sent here to find the lost princess, and she's not even here anymore. So why should I search? What am I searching for? If the Golden Mountain and the Pearl Castle is the world to come, I don't get it. I shouldn't be. Then I should just play hopscotch down here to, play my little games, Monopoly, Risk, whatever. Continue doing whatever I'm doing, and yodi dodi do until I get to the world to come. Of course, do Torah mitzvahs, but the world to come is up there. Golden Mountain, Pearl Castle. It's not in this world, not here, right? So it's very strange, to give the other ideas of it is the temple that I can understand. King David says, how can I sit in a house if Hashem don't have no house? And Hashem got to have a house. I ain't gonna sit in my house. I ain't gonna build my house until I build a house for God, right? So he yearned for that God should have a house. God should have an indwelling. God should have a very strong presence here for the entire world to partake of. That's just something to yearn for, a golden mountain and a pearl castle. That's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. And then, of course, there's the place of souls, this is the golden mountain and the pearl castle. We were hewn from the throne of glory. That's in the world of Bria. Our souls were carved from there, so to speak. Chelek Elokami Ma'al, a portion of God on high. And that's the place, the throne of glory. Don't say that you come from Cincinnati anymore. I don't want to hear you saying that. I come from Texas. I come from LA. From LA. Not anymore. It's the throne of glory. So maybe if we identify with that or try to get back to that, we will be able to connect to the Golden Mountain and Pearl Castle. So that is the wellspring of souls that we talked about. Okay, and then there was Sodom, which is this evil, and we have to extract it. That implies physical money, the gold. But the idea really mainly would be, I would say, the flash of inspiration. That's what we're looking for. We want the real flash of holy inspiration. And we're searching inner, and even though outwardly I don't think I'm searching, Rabbi. I'm not searching. But inside, in our deep recesses of our souls, we're searching. Okay, we are going to end now, everybody. End stream. Any questions?